What if the most powerful miracle wasn't a flash of light, but a mother who refused to quit? A woman who outlasted arguments, trends, and the noise of a city, armed with patience, fasting, and tears that history still remembers. Her name is Monica, and the son who ran from her prayers? He wrote a book called Confessions and changed the world. Stay with me, because the way she won wasn't loud. It was relentless. Every great fire starts small. Tagaste was not Rome. It wasn't glamorous. It was dust, market chatter, and a young woman who learned to govern her desires before she tried to govern anyone else's. One story says she used to taste wine from the household cask, just sips, until a servant mocked the habit and, stung by the truth, she stopped. Was it history or holy folklore? Either way, the point is sharp. Monica learned to master herself before she tried to rescue anyone else. That discipline became her engine. She married Patricius, a civic official with a quick temper and a wandering eye. The household was rough, and her mother-in-law didn't like her. Yet Monica refused to trade insult for insult. She stayed steady, and slowly the house changed around her. Patricius softened. He listened, and just before he died, he asked for baptism. She understood something we forget. Controlling people rarely changes them. Consistency does. And the person she needed it most for was not her husband. It was her brilliant, restless son. Because Augustine is about to enter the story and exit the faith she loved. Carthage glittered. The city had teachers, theaters, and the kind of applause that makes a young talent feel invincible. Augustine devoured rhetoric. He fell into a long, intense relationship outside of marriage and became a father to Adeodatus. He loved clever arguments and tribes of thinkers who promised answers. Manichaeism gave him a map. Good versus evil, light versus dark. Blame the cosmos when things break. Monica saw the pattern. The more brilliant the mind, the easier it is to hide from the truth behind beautiful sentences. She tried to intervene. At one point, she even barred Augustine from her table because of the sect he followed. But then she dreamed an image of Augustine standing on the same rule, the same path. She read it as a promise. She reopened the door. And instead of debating him at dinner, she started to hunt for mentors who could outthink him. She played the long game. Rumors say her friends begged her to give up, to stop chasing a grown man across cities. She didn't chase. She followed. There's a difference. Chasing forces. Following waits for the opening. And the next opening should have been a voyage together. Instead, he left her on the dock. Rome called. Augustine wanted the opportunities of the capital, the students, the connections. Monica wanted to go with him. The story bites. He told her to wait at the chapel and slipped away. When she reached the harbor, sails were already shrinking against the sky. For most of us, that's the breaking point. For Monica, it became a pivot. She wept, yes. Then she booked passage. Not to scold him on the gangplank, but to meet him where Providence was taking him next. By the time she reached him, his career was shifting again, this time toward Milan, toward a bishop whose words carried more than style. A line enters legend. People say Ambrose told her, "A child of so many tears cannot be lost." Did he say it verbatim? Historians ask. But everyone agrees on the reality behind it. Ambrose understood her, and she trusted his timing. She didn't need a guaranteed quote. She needed a credible shepherd. Because the words that would turn Augustine weren't hers. They would come from a pulpit and a garden. Augustine admired Ambrose at first like a critic admires a virtuoso. The bishop spoke with weight. But form broke open into meaning. The scriptures Augustine once mocked began to make sense. They weren't childish, he had been. Meanwhile, Monica shifted tactics again. She fasted. She served. She adopted Ambrose's counsel about moderation on certain devotions. She let teaching, not nagging, carry the weight. Slowly, the man who loved applause discovered a quieter hunger. He wanted the kind of truth that didn't need an audience. Some retellings make this part dramatic, like lightning hits and angels sing. The reality was slower and more dangerous. Augustine realized the truth would cost him his image. It would demand a new life. He wrestled. He stalled. He tried to reason with himself as if reason could negotiate with surrender. Then, in a garden in Milan, a child's voice rose over his arguments. "Take and read." He opened the scriptures. The words were not an essay. They were an exit. When he stood up from that reading, the tide had turned. Baptism was not a rumor. It was a date. Midnight liturgy. Oil and water. Silence broken by ancient words. Augustine, the intransigent debater, entered the font with Alypius and Adeodatus, the son he had once given the world before he gave God his will. Scholars will say this was 387, and they're right. But for Monica, the timing was simply at last. Witness accounts don't give us everything she felt. We have no diary with exclamation points. We have Augustine's gratitude and the fact that the church has never forgotten her tears. That's enough. If you've waited long for someone you love, you recognize the expression she must have worn. Not triumph, not "I told you so," but relief almost too heavy to carry. Rumors suggest she glowed with a quiet pride that looked like peace. Reports claim she thanked Ambrose with the kind of gratitude only a mother can speak, short, direct, unforgettable. No fireworks, just the kind of joy that makes all the earlier humiliation strangely light. And just when you think the story peaks at a font, it rises again on a balcony above a port city where the sky opens. They were going to Africa, finally. Tickets bought, bags packed. Waiting for a ship, Monica and Augustine talked, not about schedules, but about the life to come. They spoke like people who had stepped past the noise, who could almost breathe the air of heaven from a window in time. The scene is called The Vision at Ostia. It isn't cinematic spectacle. It reads like a hush that fell between them, and for once the mind and the heart moved together without friction. After that stillness, Monica made a simple request. "Don't worry about where I'm buried," she told him. "Only this, remember me at the altar. No monuments, no complicated memorial. Just prayer at the place where earth touches heaven." A few days later, fever. She didn't panic. She had reached the harbor within. Augustine grieved as any son would, but he sensed something unusual. Sorrow without despair, pain without revolt. She had taught him how to lose and how to keep, and the story could end there. But if you stop now, you miss Monica's real revolution. People say Monica prayed Augustine into the church and leave it at that. True, but not the whole truth. She used a four-step strategy most of us overlook. First, self-mastery. That wine anecdote, precise or embroidered, carries real insight. She learned to be the kind of person whose desires listen to her conscience. That authority bleeds into everything. Second, patience. She didn't chase arguments. She waited for openings. She let the truth work on its own clock. Third, mentors. She found Ambrose. She accepted his corrections. She treated the church like a living community, not a private project. Fourth, reverent detachment. She wanted Augustine to convert, yes, but she wanted God more. That's why she could die at Ostia without demanding a grand funeral back home. The goal was never her plan. It was God's. Critics brand her controlling. Watch carefully. She set boundaries. She also backed off. She called out error. She also trusted a dream. That balance, firm but not frantic, turned a looming tragedy into a testimony. And it's why her story is less about one man's baptism and more about thousands of quiet victories you'll never see on a timeline. Centuries move. Relics travel. Calendars shift her feast day. But the part people remember isn't logistics. It's a sentence any parent understands. Don't stop praying. Not because prayer controls outcomes, but because it changes the one who prays into someone who can carry the outcome with love. There's buzz online about Monica as the patron for impossible cases. The fine print matters. She didn't work magic. She practiced endurance. She didn't force Augustine into a font. She created conditions where the truth could be heard, and then she stepped aside when the right voice arrived. It's said that her final legacy is a courage anyone can borrow. Endure long seasons, ask for help, surrender the last word. Rumors suggest she smiled more in Milan than in Carthage. We can't prove that, but we can point to one detail for sure. When the moment came, she didn't turn her victory into a speech. She turned it into worship. And maybe that's the line the modern world needs most. Win quietly, then hand the credit back. Saint Monica did not bend history with headlines. She bent it with habits. If you've got someone who won't listen, remember her map. Master yourself, wait for the opening, find wisdom you don't yet have, and hold the outcome with open hands. That's not passive. That's brave. Here's the surprise. The most famous thing she ever did was not convincing Augustine. It was refusing to stop loving him when convincing failed. That choice built a bridge God was happy to cross. So ask yourself, who in your life needs the kind of love that can outlast an argument? Start there, pray there, and if you're tired, borrow her words at the altar. You don't have to say much, just don't stop. Because sometimes the miracle is not what happens to them. It's what happens to you while you wait.